I'll make a pie, she decided. A very special pie for old Mr. Bear. In a flicker of an eye, she made the pie crust, and in a trizzle and trice, she whipped up a filling of blueberries and honey. Now for the trickery, she muttered, flipping through her magical cookbook to one of her favorite recipes. Hi everyone, this is Mrs. Reed for Fun, and the book that I'd like to share with you today is called Big Bad Bruce by Peet. For Evergreen Forest was a quiet, peaceful place until Bruce, a great shaggy brute of a bear, came wandering up out of a canyon one day. A bear of such size was enough to frighten anyone, and the smaller creatures who lived there kept a sharp eye on Bruce in case he might give them trouble. As long as Bruce was busy rooting around under boulders and logs, searching for a feast of beetles and grubs, there was no need to worry. But when the big fellow was feeling frisky and ready for fun, it was time to beware of the bear. What Bruce called fun was to scare the wits out of everyone. The most fun of all for Bruce was rock tumbling. There were lots of rocks in Evergreen Forest, great jumbles of them. With a swipe of a paw, the bear sent them tumbling down the steep slopes, 3 and 4 at a time. The tumbling rocks shattered logs and flattened the bushes and brush, leaving no place for the rabbits and quail to hide. So they took off in a panic to go leaping and dodging and flying pell-mell in every direction. Once he had them all on the run, Bruce went rolling around on the ground, exploding into great, roaring fits of laughter. Ho ho, ho ho, ho ho, ho ho. As long as the bear lived in Evergreen Forest, it would never be peaceful and quiet again. And for all anyone could see, he had come there to stay. Then one afternoon, Bruce made an awful mistake, a blunder. He came across a huge boulder resting on a bluff and decided to give it a ride. With a mighty heave, he sent the boulder tumbling down a steep slope. Flumpity, blumpity, wumpity, wump, smashing pine trees and aspens to splinters and leaving deep dents in the ground as it went. In one last big bounce, it landed kerplump in a berry patch, just missing an old woman and her cat by a whisker. It was Roxy, a crafty little witch, who was out picking blueberries with her cat Clinker. "Where in blazes did you come from?" she shrieked, giving the boulder a vicious kick. "How did you get here? Who sent you?" Just then a raucous roar of laughter echoed through the pines, and in a twinkle, Roxy caught sight of the bear on the bluff. "So that's who!" she cried, and in a fury she went storming up the slope to face the bear. "You big blumzucks! You exploded! You big bumbling brute! That rock could have squashed us to smithereens, and you think it's funny?" "Har, har," chortled Bruce. "Ho, ho! Hee, hee! Har, har!" The bear had never seen anything half so funny as the frantic little woman with the wild flying hair. "Laugh while you can," warned the witch, "but just wait. I'll have the last laugh, Mr. Bear. Oh, indeed I will." Then she took off like a shot to go streaking down the slope, so fast her cat could barely keep pace. And when the witch reached her cabin at the edge of the forest, she had hatched a plot. "I'll make a pie," she decided. "A very special pie for old Mr. Bear." In a flicker of an eye, she made the pie crust, and in a trizzle and trice, She whipped up a filling of blueberries and honey. "Now for the trickery," she muttered, flipping through her magical cookbook to one of her favorite recipes. Then, reading the directions carefully, Roxy began to measure. 1 drop of dwindling, 2 blurps of belittling, a smidgen of minikin, a half teaspoon of twerk, a shrift of shortening, and then 1 pinch of kaput. Should do it. The instant the pie was baked a golden brown and ready to serve, Roxy scurried out the door with it, back to the forest. Then, keeping an eye out for the bear, she crept along through the shadows as slinky as a fox. When she reached a small clearing near the spot where she had met the bear, there was not a sign of him, but she could hear him snorting and snooting around in the brush somewhere up the slope. Quickly, she picked out a pine stump, jerked off her apron, and flung it over the top, then put the pie on it. "The table's all set," she whispered. "Now skit-scat, kitty cat, let's get lost." And they ducked down behind a log, just a hop, skip, and a jump from the stump to wait for old Mr. Bear. They didn't wait long. Pretty soon a whiffle of breeze sent the sweet aroma of blueberries and honey drifting up to Bruce, and he followed his snuffling nose straight to the stump, snatched up the pie in his paws, and in one chomp and a slurp, it was gone. "Ho, ho!" cackled Roxy, popping up from behind the log. "I tricked you, Mr. Bear. Ho, ho! Did I ever?" Bruce didn't like being surprised, and he let go with an angry gruff. "Gruff yourself!" Roxy shot back. "You don't scare me. Just watch out you don't get pecked to bits by a quail or stomped on by a rabbit." "Snurf!" snorted the grumpy bear, and he wheeled around and lumbered off into the underbrush. Bruce hadn't gone very far when he began feeling drowsy. So drowsy he could hardly keep his eyes open. So he flopped down against a tree trunk to rest, and in the time it takes for one big yawn, he dropped off to sleep. While the bear slept, he gradually began to grow smaller. Inch by inch, and little by little, Bruce dwindled away. He kept shrinking and shriveling until he was down to the size of a possum. And still he kept shrinking. When the diminishing spell was finally finished, the bear had dwindled all the way down to the size of a chipmunk. What's going to happen to Mr. Bear? Will the curse remain and he will stay tiny forever? Write me a comment with your prediction. This is Mrs. Reed for Fun. I'll see you all next week. Subscribe and give me a like. Bye, everybody.